songbirds today. Listen to them all. Sounds like a zoo.
This fall spring's gotta end at some point.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is just how it is now.
This is winter now.
Yeah. Maybe winter is just paradise and summer is just horrible. What up, Paul the salty ball? Fuck my parents, man. Couldn't have chose any other goddamn fucking name, dude.
Oh, just because it rhymes with ball so much.
It's just such a memeable name.
Yeah.
So many different rhyming words, and it's one syllable, so it fits into their little fucking playground rhymes. Couldn't have named me anything else, man.
I don't know, the worst I got was fucking Amelia Bedelia in school.
Yeah.
That was the only thing they could, like, tease me with.
They didn't tease you with Amelia Earhart?
No.
Because she's cool. Amelia Earhart, like, flew around the world and shit.
Yeah.
So Amelia Bedelia, but wasn't Amelia Bedelia cool too? She was like a detective, right?
No, she was like this maid that took everything too literally and fucked everything up.
Oh, I see. I never read. Amelia Bedelia was a little after my time. Yeah, that's not too bad. Having like one character in fiction that kids are like, that isn't, you know, that they can make fun of. That's not too bad, man. But me, like, I had the double whammy because of my last name as well. So close to Porky. So close. One word away from Porky. It's like, man.
One letter.
Yeah, one letter. My initials are PP, yeah.
Your full one's Pep. It's
Pep.
Not too bad.
Oh, doesn't really describe me very well, though. I ain't the peppiest guy, you know. Any name, any other name. Could have been a Joe, could have been a Jim, could have been a fucking anything. An Alex, a George, a Philip.
Yeah. When y'all are naming your kids, try to put yourself in the mindset of like a 5-year-old on the playground.
Yep. See how many fucking ways can you come up with to make that name into a funny thing and then pick the least funny name. Do it for your children. You ever see the movie Porky's in the 80s? I didn't see it in the 80s. I didn't see Porky's until the 90s when I was a teenager and would have been interested in said movie. But yeah, Porky's, I don't even think I would have got it in the 80s. Like, remember, I was 0 to 10 in the 80s. I was born in 1980, so by 1989, I was only 9 years old. So, you know.
A little early.
It's a little early for like a college frat movie like Porky's. It just wouldn't have, I had no frame of reference on that shit at that age. College humor and shit like that. Like, I don't get it.
Horror movies, though.
Horror movies, like, everybody's got a connection to those. Even if I didn't understand some of the, like, plot filler stuff, you know, the more adult side of things, like, I understood the horror. Everybody understands being scared or stalked by something or haunted by something.
Did you end up watching that Nightmare on Elm Street too in the 80s too?
Oh yeah.
Which
yeah.
You definitely did not understand all the gayness.
No, not at all. Like, I ended up watching all, like, Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, and 3 while I was about 8 My little sister was about 6, and I got in trouble because we'd gone on some, I can't even remember where we went, but we'd gone on some kind of vacation where we got a hotel room, and my parents got an adjoining room for the kids. So me and my little sister had our own little hotel room, and then the parents obviously had their own. And so we were like, I was in charge of picking a show on TV, and we watched A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I was cool with it because at that point I was already like well into my like horror fascination, but my little sister was not. She was into Barbie dolls and shit. And so that movie, like, she didn't sleep for like 6 months. She'd wake up with nightmares. Dude, I was in so much trouble. I remember my parents were so mad at me for showing her that movie, but whatever. That's what they get. Should have put her in charge. Then I would have just watched Barbie movies and shit.
Well, that's what they get too for just putting you in an adjoining room at 8 years old.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
It's like you either suck it up and just not fuck on vacation, or
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, I liked Freddy was always my favorite slasher film. Like I never really liked. By the time I got around to seeing like Friday the 13th with Jason and Halloween with Mike Myers, I was just like, these guys are kind of like flavorless in the face of Freddy. Like Freddy has got like all this personality to him and shit, and he's got all these witty quips, and he clearly like relishes what he's doing, and these other two dudes are just like emotionless zombies. I just really couldn't connect with them. You know what I mean? And it probably has a lot to do with the fact that I was exposed to Freddy first, but
and subconsciously the fucking gay shit in Freddy too.
probably so, man. We just watched that movie, and like, I know it has the reputation for being super gay and stuff, but I thought like, man, maybe it's probably not anywhere near as gay as people are saying it is. You know, you can read anything into anything, and it had been like at least 20 years since I've seen Freddy 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. That movie is gay as fuck. All the way through, it's gay. It's like almost an allegory for being a gay person, for like being a closeted gay kid. Like Freddy is his desire to fuck men, basically. And it's like he's tortured by it. He's got this very straight-laced family that can't understand. He's got this girl that he's into that he can't seal the deal with, you know, because it's not what he wants. Like, you can say that all the way up until about the last, like, eighth of the movie. And then at that point, the gay allegory kind of falls apart. But it's definitely, like, I would not be surprised.
The writer admitted he did it on purpose because he knew the actor playing the dude was a closeted gay man.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, on the fly, like, this is just the weirdest shit ever. On the fly, the writer rewrites a bunch of scenes in the movie to be gayer because he had insider knowledge that the main character was, at the time, a closeted gay guy. And so he made it gayer and gayer and gayer until, like, I don't even know what to say. It's very, very gay.
It could almost be a gay porno.
It is literally, there are some scenes where I felt like, okay, this is actually, we clicked the wrong movie. This is a gay porn. This is not Nightmare on Elm Street 2. This is like this is a gay porn. Because it looked like they were setting up for a gay porn scene. It was like that scene where he goes into that dude's room.
Yeah.
Like he busts into his friend's room in the middle of the night, and his friend is all shirtless laying in bed. And he's half shirtless. And he's like, man, I just need your help. Just let me stay here tonight, man. I was just like, man, this could very easily go like, all right, whatever, man, come here.
And then they have this leather daddy gym coach.
Yeah, they got a gym coach that's like, and I don't even know if that's real. So it's real when he wanders into the fucking leather bar.
Yeah.
See, when I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, this is the dream world.
Yeah.
And he's wandering it. But no, he like just kind of like, fuck you, mom. Fuck you, dad. You don't understand me or whatever. He goes out into the rain wearing his pajamas and he wanders into a leather bar. And then he meets his gym teacher in there all done up in leather daddy dom gear. And the gym teacher kidnaps him and takes him back to the high school and like basically starts BDSMing him. Like
Making him run laps.
making him run laps and shit. He's like, yeah, that's right. I'll teach you to be in a leather daddy bar, you little twink. And he like runs him around until he's all sweaty. And then the leather daddy ends up getting like chained to the wall by Freddy and stripped naked. So his ass is all hanging out. And Freddy literally like spanks his ass raw. And I'm just like, yeah, Freddy like makes a towel float and like whoosh, does the towel trick on the fucking leather daddy. I'm just like, what's cool, I guess. What happened? Okay. Yeah, dude, that scream that he lets out a couple of like just outlandishly girly screams.
Yeah, well, like I guess he's gotten the label of like the first male scream queen.
That's what somebody in the chat just said. Yeah. Yeah, he let out the most outlandishly effeminate screams.
Yeah. His room cleaning scene, dude.
Yeah, where he's just like fucking like wearing a halter top and like booty shorts. Yeah. Shaking his ass around his room and dancing to like fucking, I don't know, dude. Sounded like Paula Abdul or some shit. It's just like Scream Queen on Elm Street. Yeah. It's so weird too because like Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is really the only movie that breaks like Freddy's rules. Because like Freddy can only hurt you in your sleep. Like they set that up in the first movie, and that's the part of it because everybody has to sleep. But in this one, yeah, he torments people in their sleep and shit. But he's more about like, I'm gonna possess this gay kid and make him do things. And so basically, the gay kid is the one that kills everybody in the movie. He's just like possessed by Freddy or whatever the fuck.
Because in the first one, like, yeah, you could only be killed while you were asleep.
And then Freddy is kind of sexual towards him too. Or I can't remember the line, but I remember at the end he's talking to him like all domish. He's like, I'm gonna be inside your body, little boy. It's like, no!
And you remember that stroke on the side of his cheek?
Oh yeah, he's like, oh yeah.
Originally that was supposed to be him sticking his finger down his throat too. But the actor put his foot down like, no, I'm not comfortable fucking sucking on his bladed glove.
Wow. Dude. Wow. You have to understand, dude, it's so weird that they would fuck around that much with follow-up to a movie that literally like made... New Line Cinema was like made by Freddy. A Nightmare on Elm Street was such a runaway hit in comparison with its fucking budget that it like literally made New Line. It put them on the map, and they follow it up with this movie where they're just like, let's fuck around with this gay kid. Let's make the movie super gay, and like I don't know, maybe they thought they were helping him. They were like, this will help him come out. All right, so the main character at this point puts a halter top on and shakes his ass to Selena Gomez. All right, go. It's like suggestively, femininely prancing around his room. And then he gets a girl alone in his room. And instead of like, you know... him trying to put moves on her or whatever, she helps him organize his room, and then they find another girl's old diary and they sit down and read it and do like interpretive readings of, and I was like, wait a minute. This is not a romance. This is this is the gay guy's female friend.
Yeah. The fucking, I think, they call them, like, fag hags.
Fag hag. Yeah, this is his fag hag.
Yeah.
What a movie. And you know what, dude? I shit you not. We'll watch it maybe tonight. We'll watch it. But, like, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is what Nightmare on Elm Street 2 should have been.
Yeah.
Like, it takes the concept from 1 and just ramps it up and makes it, more. It's my favorite of the franchise.
Besides the first one, you mean?
Well, I really like the first one. We'll see if I like and back in the day, I've always said that 3 is my favorite, but it's been so many years since I've watched the whole series that maybe it's not anymore.
It's like how I flipped you on Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator was another one of those. I'd spent so many years skipping the first movie, so we'll see. We'll see how I feel about it. Nah, dude, Dream Warriors is pretty badass, bro. They ramped up the fucking gore, and they ramped up the Freddy. Like, Freddy's got way more of a personality in this one. Dream Warriors is the realness. Third film isn't even scary. I disagree. I mean, but I don't really think it's, like, supposed to be really all that scary.
I think, we were talking about, it's like the measure of a good horror movie to you isn't just how much you shit your pants watching it.
Right, like, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 wasn't really all that scary, and to be quite frank, neither was 1. There were some, like, unsettling scenes that there's some really cool, iconic scenes in it that are pretty unsettling, but, like...
It didn't really jump scare you.
No. There's not a lot of... There's some where Freddy just appears, but...
Once you get the initial concept, it's like...
you kind of know Freddy's there. Yeah. I don't know. That's a whole treatise maybe that I'll do one of these days. Maybe I'll write a treatise on how, like, horror movies like don't have to be scary, and how there are different types of scary and different things that you can do that are completely outside of even really trying to be scary while still making a horror movie. Because it's so true. How is Freddy's personality important to a horror movie? Well, it's just like, all right, you've got a basic formula going here. You've got a bunch of teenagers, and you want to have them be chased around and killed one by one by a slasher. That's the genre, basically. A lot of the thinking on that genre was like, well, the slasher should be this blank slate. Literally, Michael Myers is credited in Halloween as the Shape. Because he's just not even really supposed to be even all, like, he's just the insinuation of a murderer coming after you, which is fine. But it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for personality, which a lot of people would say, like, well, that's the point. Okay, I get it. Jason, he's the same way. Jason very well could have been the Shape. He's just a dude in a hockey mask that chases people around with a butcher knife and kills them, right? Freddy, like, talks to people. Like, both of those other dudes, they're wearing masks, so part of the scariness of them, I guess, is supposed to be that you can't even see the dude behind there. Is he enjoying this? Is he just a zombie? Is he fighting it? Like, what's going on with him? Freddy, he's just unabashedly into what he's doing. You know what I mean? He's got this sick sense of humor about it, cracks these little jokes. It's implied, and it's not even implied. It's like canon that he gets off on how scared you are. That's his thing. Like,
his whole lore is a child murderer.
Right. Well, but as his like ghostly form, he feeds on your fear. So he is totally into it. I don't know anyone who's scared of a horror movie. I mean, there are people that, like, are sensitive to that kind of shit, that are really like unable to decouple reality from fantasy.
We watched A Quiet Place Part 2 with your mom.
Yeah. She was spooked. She was spooked. She had a purse full of crickets and she was scared shitless. The crickets were scared shitless too. They were quiet as fucking could be. Hereditary had the best jump scares. I don't even really remember many of the jump scares in Hereditary.
Yeah, like I think you like it more because of their like metaphors too.
Yeah, I mean, I like Hereditary because if you watch the beginning of that movie, it zooms in on a model house, one of her models, and then the movie starts to take place within the model, and nobody ever goes like, they just think that that's like some kind of like slick intro transition or some shit, and it isn't. Like, it is heavily implied that what's going on in Hereditary might not even be real. That it might be a dream of hers or some sort of alternate reality taking place in some, you know what I mean? Like, people don't talk about that when they talk about that movie, but it's implied at the beginning and the end, as a lot of the pull away shots at the end look like a model rather than an actual treehouse. That what is going on in some universe that takes place on a different plane of existence.
Or her like interpreting traumatic events
Right.
through the model, and
Because that's what she does. That's her gig in the movie, is like, I basically work through my trauma by creating these incredibly detailed, evocative dioramas of it. And yet everybody misses the fact that at the beginning of the movie, we zoom in on one of those dioramas, and that's where the action starts, while we're still zoomed. They have as much control over their lives as the figures in their models. At least that's what I take from it. Well, that's one thing to take from it for sure. Does it bother you when movies do that, make up a universe to exist within a bigger one? No. In fact, it's one of the things that I think I seek out, either consciously or subconsciously, in a movie. Like, I like movies. I'm a David Lynch fan, so it's like, I like movies that subvert your expectations about reality and make you question whether what you're seeing is real or a hallucination or a dream or some machination of the director. I really like movies that challenge you to like think beyond the borders of the film. Movies with a philosophical bent. You know what I mean?
or like the Babadook, where like the
Right.
line is blurred on what's the Babadook and what's her.
Right. The Babadook is a movie that got insanely popular, but I don't know that most people watching the Babadook thought beyond the spooky movie aspect of it. But really, the Babadook is about like loneliness and the loss of a loved one and coping with single motherhood and raising a child with special needs and all of those things. You know what I mean? Like, that's the horror at the core of the Babadook, and that's the symbolism of the Babadook. It's like, really, the Babadook, if you look at how it comes into their lives, it comes into their lives through a children's book. So really, the movie is about a woman who has nobody to help her, really, trying desperately to raise and love a special needs son. The Babadook is him. The Babadook is her. It's their broken relationship. It's the PTSD that she has from the violent car crash she was in that killed her husband. It's the loss of her husband in general and how that changed her expectations for what their lives were going to be. It's watching their son display aspects of her husband and being mad at him for that, as if he has any control over being like his father. That's it. The monster at the core of it is surreptitious to the story. That's the horror element sprinkled over a story about a lonely single mother that's slowly going insane. She tames it at the end, right? And a lot of people, like, if you listen to people talk about the Babadook, they're just like, yeah, Babadook is pretty good. Didn't like the ending, though. That didn't make any sense. And it's like, it made total sense. The Babadook was her psychological breakdown. That's what it was. It was her being unable to cope with the stresses of her work life, which, by the way, she worked a job where she is basically her job to usher people in the twilight of their lives out of their existence. She worked in an old folks home, surrounded by death 24/7, and then comes home to a child that's out of control, always in trouble at school because he's got undiagnosed ADHD or whatever it is. Kid's clearly got some problems. She's fucking everybody else in her world thinks like, oh, well, that happened 6 years ago. You should have really moved on from that when you lost your husband, but she hasn't. And so she's increasingly isolated from her family, who see her as a downer to be around. It's classic depression, just like moving everything out of your life and making room for nothing but your despair.
Being way less financially well off than her peers.
And the truth of depression and those types of mental disorders is you master them. You don't defeat them. You don't make them poof disappear. There's no happily ever after. And so her feeding the Babadook with her son, that's an allegory for therapy. That's an allegory for personal growth. That's an allegory for coming to understand the things that haunt you and compartmentalize them rather than letting them rule your life like the Babadook was before. So that's why she tames it and feeds it with her son at the end, because it completes the allegory. The Babadook is not a monster that was summoned from a fucking weird book. The Babadook is mental illness. The Babadook is the confluence of mental illness creating a multiple stage breakdown in a small family unit, and how they deal with it and come through the other end stronger because of it. When the Babadook takes control of her towards the end of it's physical abuse. People that are under that much pressure will sometimes lash out at a child. It happens. It doesn't mean that child and that parent can't move on past that. Doesn't mean that a parent can never recover from something like that. It just means that they have to do the work of it, and that's why the Babadook ends the way it does. And so oftentimes, like, that's always what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a movie that's telling a story subversively, and horror is always a good place to look for that. It's like, I don't think you watched it with me, but I watched it one of the nights I was sitting up, that new Invisible Man movie. Yeah. But it's just a big allegory for spousal abuse and like the shit that women go through when they're with somebody that's abusive. They leave them, they're stalking, and there's this and there's that. It's a horror movie told within the confines of that. She sends her son out of the house. Right, okay, yeah. Before she feeds the Babadook. So it's her mental illness that she's taking care of.
But she implies that he needs to do it at some point.
Right, she tells him, he helps her, you know what I mean, to fucking collect the worms for it.
And like, when you're older, you can go down
right.
there.
When you're older, you can go deal with it. But right now, you're a kid. You should be having fun.
Yeah, because of course he's going to have trauma to work through just because their whole experience.
Right.
Like, you can, like I said, rebuild from it, but the trauma doesn't go away.
Right. My favorite werewolf movie, I think we watched it together, Ginger Snaps.
Yeah.
So that's a huge allegory for puberty, basically. It's like, it tells the story of like what happens to girls when they go through puberty. And really, basically, and if you take the horror out of it, one of the two sisters has basically a little bit of like, I guess what you would call precocious puberty, and the other one doesn't. And so one of them develops way faster and becomes way more, centered in that she just develops quicker, and the other one doesn't. And so it's the conflict between those two sisters as they are really close to one another. And then one of the two sisters, even though that they're basically the same age, one of them starts to become interested in boys and sex and all of that shit.
There are girls that, puberty, the hair thing is pretty literal.
Yeah.
People are really insecure about their body hair when they start doing that.
Right. And so puberty in this movie is onset by an attack by a werewolf. And then all of a sudden she's trying to shave off all this extra body hair that she's growing because she's turning into a werewolf, and she doesn't want to tell her mom about it. It's, you know what I mean? It's very clearly an allegory for, going from being a child to a young adult. Midsummer hinted at a plot arc and potential twist in the beginning, but soon shifted to a less foreseeable but worse plot in the middle. No, dude, you're missing it, man. You say that the screenwriter missed an opportunity there? Wrong. You're not paying attention to the movie. There's no way that the writer of a movie like Midsummer included a whole opening scene where she experiences this horrifying trauma in real time, losing her whole family in one night, basically. And that's unintentional or just some kind of missed opportunity. It's tied back together at the end. Why do you think she smiles at the end? At the end of Midsummer, when she watches her boyfriend burned, but she's being accepted into this new community, and they're celebrating her as the Queen of Flowers, the final shots of her are smiling because she regains what she lost.
Yeah, it's like that's a very big temptation with cults, is like a support system when you have none.
Right. She's a person who has gone through something so profoundly, shockingly devastating in her life that most people can't even imagine it. But here's this cult that's built around people walking off cliffs at the end of their lives and shit. Yeah. Deals with death different and really wants nothing more than to just accept her for what she is. And at the end, she gets it at the cost of burning everything in her life. And the metaphor there, of course, her friends slowly but surely leaving her, is the metaphor for what happens to a person who's psychologically weakened by a devastating event, finds themselves tricked into a cult or a religion. And the kind of false gratification that provides.
Yeah, they drug her, which is something cults do.
Yep. They drug her. They put her through profound, like, brainwashing type of things. They force her to make a ritual of burning the old parts of herself. Very literally in the film, but...
No, I definitely prefer Midsummer over Hereditary because of that.
Sure. Yeah, I liked Midsummer, too. I like them both. Yeah, I definitely recommend you check out Midsummer if you haven't already. It's a very, very cool film. I mean, in a way, A Nightmare on Elm Street is an allegory for puberty as well. If you really look at what's going on in it, and in fact, all slasher movies really are. There's a reason why teenagers are the target, and where there's always, like, there's like this like pseudo morality tale behind all these slasher movies, right? It's
Yeah,
like
like the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street, they're having sex at like 15 years old.
right. Right. And so it's just like and that's how it is in Jason or whatever. It's always a bunch of teenagers and there's always like a sexual component to
Or a
it.
drug component or whatever.
Right. And so there's this like kind of like base morality tale behind all of these. I don't think it's necessarily the intent of the filmmakers to like deride these things, but it's taking that kind of like Baptist literal hellfire, like if you sin against God, you will literally burn in hell kind of mentality and making it real in the real world. You know what I mean? Oh, these kids go to Camp Crystal Lake and there's not enough adults to supervise what they're doing and they sneak off and they fuck in the woods and Jason comes along and butchers them and drags them into the lake or whatever.
That's that primal fear of like the stuff that religion instills in you and the
Yeah.
culture instills in you and all that.
Halloween is the virgin girl surviving for being pious and pure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like they kind of explicitly explore that in Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
The virgin lives.
Well, Cabin in the Woods is like, it's an interesting movie from a couple of angles because Cabin in the Woods is a super good, like well-made movie. So it's funny and it's got all the things you'd expect from a horror movie, but it's also just like an incredibly subversive dissection of horror movies in general, especially monster movies. And all of the different morality tales and different fucking exploitations that are used in that. And yeah, one of the people has to be the pious virgin girl that doesn't want to give it up before marriage or whatever. The prince or whatever, one of them's got to be like a jock. All that shit is just like dissecting slasher movies, basically. Do we as humans just crave that crime and punishment paradigm? Could you even have a movie like that based around a premise? So much of horror is based on the basic idea of sin and retribution. Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, we just got done talking about Midsummer, which really has nothing to do with sin and retribution. Midsummer and, the Babadook, they're really not about sin and retribution. They're about real things. Midsummer, probably PTSD and the danger of the accessibility of cults and how someone can be sucked into one. And, the Babadook more about, what tragedy can do to break up a family and how mental illness can manifest itself in multiple generations of a family.
And like horror is a good medium for that because like if you just did like a straight up fucking she's a piece of shit mother because this, that, and the other thing.
There are definitely movies that are like that tell a bleak tale that's very straightforward and stuff, but horror is great at spicing up that kind of a film.
And
but
exposing people that wouldn't normally be.
Right. Is Midsummer too scary? I'm starting to dip. No. Midsummer is psychologically disturbing, but not like an overtly jump scare type of movie.
It's gory.
It's got some gory, very like explicit gore in it.
Some nudity.
Yeah. But it's also a movie that's like, it really doesn't take advantage of the darkness at all.
Yeah. It's bright.
It's a very bright horror movie, which makes it a very strange horror movie for you to dip your toe into if you're just starting as a horror person. Well, the invention of the horror movie goes way, way back, and I don't think you can really like pin. But it starts before movies. Like you can't say someone invented a horror movie because a horror movie is based on the oral tradition of telling scary stories, and who knows?
Instilled some moral with them.
So it's not like some genius came up with the idea of like, yes, I will make scary things. That's something that's inherent to the human fucking experience. Our pre-human ancestors told each other stories about a fucking tiger coming out of the woods, or a great bear that ate a whole village, or whatever the fuck, around the fire. And there were analogs even probably before there was a formal codified language between these beings.
It's like superstition is inherently interwoven in that.
Right. And so we are, like, you're looking at something that just taps into part of the human experience. That's why horror movies are popular. And that's why there are people like me that are maybe a little more interested in them than other people are, because, like, that has always interested me.
The psychology and social commentary of them.
Yep. Telling scary stories was probably originally a tradition of fact maintenance, not the creation of fiction. You're absolutely right. It would probably be like a story that was passed from generation to generation that had some kind of allegorical meaning, but was told with the scary elements ramped up in it to drive home the lesson. You don't go near the river, because here's what happened to little Thag in the next tribe over. He went near the river, and the jaws of the river opened and swallowed him and rent his body pieces. It seems right to me, but who knows? All I do know is that it's well established that our fearfulness is part of our human, like, evolutionary psychology.
It's like we're very squishy, vulnerable beings. We have to be kind of paranoid to survive.
Yep. It has to be kind of built into our DNA to be wary and prone to being scared.
Yeah, it's like we're literally designed horribly. Like, we're just walking around with all our internal organs exposed.
Yeah. We got to be scared of that shit. Well, it was happening before movies, though. Like, the idea of selling people being scared. Okay.
Brothers Grimm.
The Brothers Grimm, Shakespeare, pre-Shakespearean theater. We're talking like Greek and Roman theater is dotted with these very gory representations of violence on the stage and stuff, meant to provoke a fear response in people. It goes way back, man.
Yeah, like, there's definitely like misogyny in Greek mythology. Like, it's the woman that ends up summoning the monster or whatever.
Right. And once again, you can take those stories, and just like we did with the Babadook, and really pick apart the layers of what the writers of those stories and plays were saying, making a social commentary, that flawed though it may be. It's just a continuation of a broad human tradition. Dubstep step chick. That's all it is. There's some part of us as human beings that likes being frightened. It satisfies us. I mean, there are way more ancient horror villains. There's Grendel from Beowulf, which is long considered to be one of the first pieces of fiction recovered. Grendel is a nightmare monster, but he has a backstory as well. He's a villain because he was cast out from society, and because of the way he looked. And so he became like, Grendel has a whole psychology to him. But Grendel is the prototypical slasher. The beast that lives out in the woods. Beowulf is the prototypical protagonist. Strong, male, embodying, what it means to be male. Confronting it. And that basic story archetype guaranteed predates Beowulf by tens of thousands and thousands of years. It just goes on and on and on. And we've lost a lot of human history. A lot of human history is just lost to time.
Yeah, so I think of how many like cave paintings and shit were like conveying stories like that.
Yeah.
They just wear away.
I was thinking because we have good graphics and jump scares, it was suddenly something new, but in fact, it's actually degraded in quality if you examine it. Well, maybe. If you really want to think about it, there's this great documentary me and Amelia watched called The Cave of Forgotten Dreams by Werner Herzog. And it talks about one of the chambers. They found this cave where a cave-in, it's in the French mountains. And a cave-in happened in antiquity, and it basically sealed the cave tight. And then it was rediscovered, and so when they went into it, it was basically how it was left tens of thousands of years ago by prehistoric man. And what they found is that there was one chamber where when you had to kind of crawl through a crawl space to get to it. And then there was a chamber where when lit properly, it's very spooky just looking at it. And they posit that this was like a chamber that people came to have like a frightening religious experience. You would crawl through this hole, and in there would be the shaman dressed in like a bear headdress, shaking two rattles and standing at the altar, and he's lit by all these torches, so his shadow is huge on the wall behind him. And they kind of showed how that would look. And it's like, fuck. And we're talking about literal cave people, right? Sounds gay. You suck. The first haunted house, yeah. It's on YouTube, yeah. I'm pretty sure you can just watch it on YouTube for free. It's a very old documentary. I think it was made in like the 80s,
Yeah.
probably.
Or really early 2000s, maybe, the latest.
So they found, it's just evidence that these things were part of theater. And that's, once again, we arrive at the same conclusion that we continuously arrive at. Everything is psychology, right? We think that this human experience that we have is filled with things that don't have direct analogs to our direct ancestors, but that's in our minds. We are the same thing that they were, functionally. Now, of course, you can make the argument that, like, if you cut one of us open and one of them open, they would find all kinds of chemicals, microplastics in us, yes. Psychological drugs and stuff maybe changed our perceptions on things, yes.
We've evolved a little bit.
We've evolved to tolerate things that, a Stone Age person would be completely... But they obviously had a tolerance for things that we would be completely at home with. So we've had a little bit of microevolution in terms of our tolerance as a species, but the same shit. The same blood, the same brains, the same organs, the same fucking shit. The same psychology, to a certain extent. The basis for it. And how we satisfy that psychology and how we come to terms with it has changed. But it's still the same root psychology.
Some of our leftover pizza. You
Oh.
have to have some if you don't want it.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to eat it just quite yet, but that's fine.
It's in there if you...
Cool beans. People have always wanted to party. True dat.
People have always wanted to get high, too.
Yep. They've found like ancient hemp pipes and shit. Ancient fucking, cannabis seeds. sealed away in jars and shit. People were getting, dude, there's nothing new under the sun. Human beings, we just endlessly recontextualize our life, and we like to think that we're progressing away from those ancestors, but my opinion happens to be that we're remaining as close to them as ever. Oh, yeah. Well, there are Native Americans roaming what, is now the United States, Canada, and Mexico and shit fucking 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago. So these,
But that's nothing on, like, the macroevolution time scale.
Nope.
Jesus Christ. We'll just get you a new cup. That one was all.
Fly ridden. Thanks, babe. I'm gonna kill a couple of these stragglers. Dead.
You want some tea, maybe?
Yeah. Thank you, honey. Tea. Tea's my new jam. Find coffee a little bit harsh in the mornings. Tea is my jam. Leave one to warn the others. That was mine. I lost it during my time traveling. Oh, shit. Sorry. That was hot, the way you shoot gun. Oh, shit. Thirst Trap Paul. What's up, ladies? It's me and the old salt gun. Up, hold on one second. Oh, yeah. Just here to have a little chit chat.
What?
Nothing. When I shot that fly, dubstep chick in the chat was like, the way you shoot that gun's kind of hot. I was just like, women are weird, man. Like, if you talk to most women, they're like, I abhor any kind of violence, and I think war is horrible and shit. And then they get all moist looking at a dude shooting a gun. And it's just like, what's wrong with the world?
Moist.
Yeah, moist, dude. Such a gross word.
It's better than wet.
Wet.
Like, you could have a moist
That-
cake, or
that's
you could have
true.
a wet cake.
Yeah, wet cake is gross. Is there anything that's good when it's wet? They do make burritos in a style that's called wet,
Yeah.
where it's like you get your burrito and then they put like hot sauce over it or like whatever the fuck. Moist. That is true. Moist is an interesting word because it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It can imply like dank and stank and like, or it can imply like, oh damn, man, this fucking banana bread is moist.
Damn, I keep forgetting to do that.
What, the banana breads?
Yeah.
Whatever, baby.
Oh, maybe I'll do it today.
What about the word pupa? I don't really care.
Yeah.
It doesn't gross me out. Just a stage of insect life. I like insects, man. I don't find insects all that gross, usually.
These fucking flies.
Flies are gross. They're just assholes.
And ants.
I don't really find ants gross, just annoying.
Yeah. But you didn't get fucking swarmed like I did.
Yeah, that's true. You got a literal horror movie happen to you. Pupation. Yeah. Well, a fucking larval insect has to pupate. There's nothing wrong with that. Everything about it is fine. See, I think that humans could learn a lot by examining their past to find these analogs, because I think if we reconnect with that sensibility, we'll be able to better design a society, possibly, that serves us rather than exploits us. But it really comes down to us understanding, and by the way, with that word understanding comes acceptance of neurodivergence and realizing that there are different strokes for different folks and different people have a different psychological experience, and trying to make a society that is accepting and viable for all of those people. That's our best bet. Understanding ourselves is our best bet, but we seem intent on denying ourselves. That seems to be more important to us. And I think as long as it's that way, you can kiss goodbye any, environmentalist action that makes any sense. You can just kiss it all goodbye. Until we realize what we are, until we can come to accept that our position on this planet is not as its master, but as one of a very fragile web of organic life. Return to monkey is basically what I'm saying. Global warming is Earth's chemotherapy. Oh. We'll all be dipped.
Sorry.
What are you sorry about?
Just my stomach rumbling.
Oh. Well, go have some breakfast, baby.
As I said, I'm heating up that pizza.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You okay? Yeah, I'm just thinking. I get lost in thought a lot when I do these, because there was a guy, I was looking at the last one of these that I uploaded, and there was a guy in there, I think he's trying to troll or whatever. He was like, oh, what even is the point of these, lol? And I didn't get mad. I was just like, man, I wish I could explain.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do this to promote a brand or whatever. I do this because it provides a venue for me to think. Sometimes I have fun. Sometimes I'm in a humorous mood. Sometimes I'm in a more thoughtful mood. And it provides a venue for me to hang out and chill. Discuss things. It's like a little window on my mind. Do you like us? Not particularly, no. I mean, that's no that's no disrespect intended. I don't know you. I guess I don't know exactly how to couch all these thoughts sometimes. I'm very scatterbrained when it comes to it. And so this type of a venue, it simulates a one-on-one venue. And so as such, I guess I find myself having a one-way conversation on these, which is interesting. Thank you. Man, that red-tailed hawk is huge.
Yeah.
How does it feel psychologically to have an audience? I don't know. I think they need to do some studies, man. There are times where it's like very at the front of my thinking, and there are times where it couldn't be further from my thinking. You know what I mean?
I know, like, actors, a lot of them kind of go down the path of addiction or just self-destructiveness, probably just dwelling on the fact that, like, literally millions of people are evaluating their performance.
Yeah. It is that part of it can be stressful sometimes.
It's like you have a mid-sized audience, but, like, imagine being, like, someone hella popular.
Right. I think those people probably just further detach themselves. I think at my level of audience, it's almost manageable to interact with them because I can have fun with them, like I'm doing with the subreddit right now. You know, a lot of them I think are on to the joke and they're just kind of carrying it. It's a big kayfabe fest over there or whatever, and it's fun. Good for them. They're having a good time. But, you know, sometimes I can have some pretty stressful interactions with my audience, and then just some things that aren't really interactions that are stressful, you know.
At some point, yeah, people have to draw the line or they just go insane. Like, there's no way someone like fucking Channing Tatum or whatever could like respond to all this fan mail and shit.
That's what I'm saying. I think that like as the audience grows, the like remaining connected with them in a meaningful way becomes less and less feasible for a human mind, and I think people just fucking start looking at the money. Mm-hmm. They're like, all right, the money is, you know, a sign that I'm doing good.
Or like you talked about, like when you first started like DP, you were trying to like be super accessible and shit, and then
oh my god, dude, I took it a little far, because right at the beginning of DP, I had this weird like, well, because I had a channel before that, and so even before DP, I had a smaller audience. It's kind of like the prototype for these, mm-hmm. but there was voice chat in them. Mm-hmm. And so it was a little more intimate. And I would have people reach out to me from within that community and say, oh man, I'm having a problem, blah, 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 blah. And back then I would talk to them, and it wasn't that big a deal because it wasn't like I had like 80 people beating down my door. And I felt like, all right, well, I can do that. And then I started on DP, and I kept that same mentality. Oh, my fucking God, dude. For like a week, I found myself like responding to people from the audience and having like private discussions with them about their problems and shit. And all of a sudden, I was just like, wait a minute. Like, hold the phone. I'm not a fucking psychiatrist.
And then it was just going to keep pouring in.
It was getting worse and worse. Yeah. And so I just had to like shut the door on that shit. You and I talked on Skype quite a few times during that. I wouldn't remember. That's part of the problem with it.
Yeah.
Because I was being asked to care about too many people. You know what I mean?
Like that one dude that tried to like reconnect with you on Twitter Spaces, you had to like dig deep into your psyche to try to remember who he was.
Yeah, that's true. I had to shovel through it.
What?
Oh, nothing. Just looking out there. I keep seeing that bird.
Yeah. Saw a kitty cat over there. That kitty cat better watch out.
Yeah. The agony aunt of YouTube. Oh. Okay. Well, I know you like video games. My question is, what setting or time period do you think would make for an interesting RPG? We've talked about this before. I've already talked about my fucking favorite RPG. I'm not into it. I don't want to talk about it again. Bruce Almighty when he answers all the prayers. Yeah. It started to get absurd. And it actually led to me like losing contact with a person who was actually my friend from back in those days. But it was just necessary for my fucking psychology. I couldn't open myself up to people outside my fucking own circle. And I really learned a lesson to that effect is like, as wonderful as friends are, I'm not looking for any more. I got plenty. You know what I mean? I don't need any more friends than I got. I barely manage what I got.
Yeah, especially when you're the kind of person that wants to give.
When it comes to that, yeah, I like to be there for my friends, however they need me to be, but I just don't have enough. There ain't enough in the tank. What the fuck even is that, dude? You're going to have to define your terms. I don't even know what that is. Have you got many enemies, though? I'm trying to think if I have somebody that I would sincerely consider to be my enemy. I don't think I have an enemy. I really don't.
You've had some real shitty trolls, but...
Yeah. I mean, there's some people on the fucking internet and shit. I've had fallings out, but like, enemy? You are my enemy, sir. I don't have any enemies.
An enemy like implies that you want to like hurt them back or fucking.
Yeah, there's like some kind of interplay of you trying to tear each other down constantly, or you have some kind of investment in them losing, or they have an investment. I just don't have that. I don't have that nemesis. But I also don't live my life that way either. Like I'll tell you one thing I'm good at: forgiveness. And that can be like a tough thing to do, but I'm very forgiving of people and their particular psychologies and their problems, and I don't hold grudges. I just don't, man. That shit's like an anchor around your neck. So I don't do it.
I'm good at breakups, making them civil.
I try to be. I mean, it's already an angsty thing, and making it more angsty with my bullshit just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. You don't forgive Milo, huh?
You don't give two shits about Milo.
The last time I thought about Milo was when you just mentioned his name right now. I couldn't give two shits or a fuck, man. If that's not forgiveness, what is? What would I even have to forgive Milo for? He didn't do
It's not like
anything
you
to me.
had beef, you just fucking challenged him on some shit.
I'm telling you, man, like the whole feeling of that was so different to the way it was perceived. It was like Milo and I, like, because back in those days we would start a like a private Skype call, and there would be like the Skype chat, and people would use it. Oh, I'm gonna, 1 minute, I'm gonna go pee real quick. Oh yeah, we don't start for another 30 minutes. You're fine. Blah blah blah. We would get like have like a little talk with the person, and Milo was in there, and I was in there. And he and I like immediately had this counter chemistry that we both knew was going to be fun. Like we were like ribbing each other in the chat, and and that whole thing kind of felt that way. And then at the end of it, there was a little like sign off kind of version of that. And I really like at the end of that, I was like, because I wasn't looking at the chat at all. I was just like, whatever. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, we just had like a fun show.
Crisis.
The fucking chat was like, Paul's a fucking moron. I didn't read it till like the next day. I was like,
I also
oh.
didn't even really know who Milo was.
Yeah, I didn't.
You learned about Milo that fucking day.
And only briefly. While I was like shopping and going up an elevator, and while fucking creationist cat was calling me nonstop.
You definitely didn't set out to ruin his career. That was not your intention at all.
That happened so many months later. I would have to be the most like conniving, Machiavellian, fucking evil genius ever, and I ain't that. So no, he just, whatever. He just said some shit, and it ended up fucking surfacing and ruined his whole damn career.
I don't even think that's you. I feel like that would have come up at some point or another.
It did. Like after that big bombshell, they found him talking like less explosively and more guardedly about it on Rogan, and that piece came out. But it was really that first clip of his appearance on the DP. That was what got released like 6 days before he was supposed to be the keynote speaker at CPAC. So this dude's political career was about to go. And this one they've been fucking sitting on it like a rotten little egg, dude.
Yeah.
And they just released it right at the right time, and it went viral, and all of a sudden here's the lead fucking guy at CPAC talking about how 15-year-olds can consent to sexual relations with adults and how important it is and blah, 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 blah. And like, it's just like, whoa. And he was done.
Yeah,
Like,
he was already like pushing it with the gay thing, and then that just like confirmed a bunch
well,
of
that's what
his fears about gay people.
Walking that tightrope was his greatest strength at the time, because it was just like the GOP was like, look at this person who shouldn't have anything to do with us, if we're the homophobic party, and then explain Milo, and then all that shit comes out, and they're like, oh, we don't want to have to explain Milo. Think he was joking about that? No.
It would have come out one way or the other. He was just too popular, invited on too much shit.
Yeah. I think that Milo had an experience or a number of experiences, and this is just my fucking speculation, but if you ask me why he said what he said, I think Milo had an experience or a number of experience in his adolescence when he was not of age that he has a trouble in his mind contextualizing as imbalanced or abusive. And in fact, he's recontextualized them as necessary to him being the gay that he is. And that's what I think happened. It depends. That's why there are like these Romeo and Juliet laws and shit that cover like high school relationships and shit. Because when I was in high school, I dated a freshman when I was a senior, albeit very chastely and very briefly. But there was a little freshman girl that was all into me. I was a senior. I was 17, going soon to be 18. Had like a little pseudo high school relationship with her. It was a very brief thing, but you know what I mean? It was not the alarm bells didn't go out. Nobody cared. You know what I mean? And so there's definitely like here's the thing, and this is really where I draw the line on fucking age of consent laws, right? There's no perfect one. There's no one that goes like, all right, this is exactly the age when everybody is ready for the complexities of adult human relationships and sexual relationships and all that. And so I think 18 is a pretty good stab at that. And that's where I leave it. And that's, that obviously creates these issues sometimes where you've got like somebody that's still in high school and they're dating somebody that's 2 years younger than them. In the eyes of the state, that's a crime. So they create these laws that cover those types of relationships. But outside of that, I don't think a grown-ass adult should be fucking anybody under the age of 18. 18 seems to be a pretty fucking good. And that's really what you have to do. Because like I said, people are different. People mature at different ages. So you have to take a stab at it. And like I said, for me, 18 is it. That's the one that I think makes the most sense. Let's go with it. I don't see a problem with it. Right. There's a huge difference, right? That's the point. According to society, an old man shouldn't have sex with anyone under 25. See, that type of shit doesn't bother me fucking at all, dude. What people, and this is something that I've talked about a million times here, like, I was not raised with or never developed that kind of like gossipy, like caring about what goes on in consenting adults' bedrooms and shit. I really don't fucking care. Dude, some fucking 100-year-old dried up old man wants to fucking hook up with an 18-year-old and shower her with gifts, and she's willing, whatever. They're both fucking adults, bro. I just don't have time to care about that shit. Is it would I find it personally objectionable? Yes. Would I engage in it? No. If I had a daughter, hypothetically, and as soon as she turned 18, some 100-year-old was like, I would probably have a problem with it. But as it stands, I really don't give a fuck. It's your life to live, man. I mean, you're gonna fucking have foibles along the way. You're gonna do stupid shit in your life, and you're gonna have fun, and the way that you do it, as long as nobody's being hurt, who fucking cares? You go do it. Go have fun. Kick up your shoes and dance. Put it this way, dude. Would you want to talk to or even hang out with the 18-year-old version of yourself? I mean, that's a complex question. Maybe. Not like hang out with, but like definitely talk to. I'd have some advice for that stupid motherfucker. I'll tell you that. I'd have some fucking hard life advice to give to that kid. Scientifically, a mammal entered puberty is an adult, thus is for all mammals, including us. Puritan ideologue. All right, buddy. Don't be a weirdo, please. What would you say to him? Oh, dude, I don't even want to go into it, man. There's a number of things. I'd have to prepare for that shit, man. I'd have to have a whole ass fucking thing. And see, the thing is, I know that 18-year-old Paul wouldn't even want to listen to that shit. He'd be like, man, shut up. Well, yeah, of course. And why don't you have a seat right over there? Would you tell him how to backwards Hadouken just in case? Sure. I mean, I have been doing a backwards Hadouken since right around 1992, so. What's your take on China, Russia, and the Ukraine issues? Thanks for the $10, Ichabod Cherrywood. I don't have a specific take, to be quite honest with you. I have a general take that American hegemony is ending and that these other societies are positioning themselves to maximally exploit the vacuum that we're leaving as American empire crumbles. That's a fact that a lot of Americans are very uncomfortable with. But you can talk about it without being celebratory of it. It's just the truth. But as far as, the wars and rumors of war coming out of that region, I try and distance myself from geopolitics to the largest extent that I can. Because I find them, like most things, further depressing to an already depressive mind. I'm right there with you. Thanks. Yeah. Home renovations. Good stuff. Good stuff. If I was, a more, if my job required me to have a nuanced vision of geopolitics, then I would take the time doing it. But as it stands right now, I know my place. I know my place. My place is not studying the intricacies of foreign relations and shit. Sorry. I just ain't my place. New floors, new paint job, about to get new kitchen countertops. Damn, look at you, buddy. Well, kudos to you. Goodbye to the rest of you. I must go shoot my show in the head.